Hi, this is Vel Murugan, continuing our discussion on folk system called Part 3 Gate Questions. You must have seen Part 1 and Part 2. Otherwise, you go and watch the Part 1 and Part 2 video. Then only you can easily understand this Part 3 video on gate questions on folk system call. Next gate question. A process executes the code. Here, the fork system call has been called three times continuously. So the question is the total number of child process created is. The four options are 3, 4, 7, 8. So we know the formula to find the total number of child process created is 2 to the power of n minus 1. So here you are calling the fork system call three times. So 2 to the power of 3 minus 1. So the answer is 7. That is option C. For the same code, the question is the total number of times printf statement executed is. Now we refer this binary tree diagram for the fork system call. So for the first fork system call, this parent process will create these two child processes, that is P and C1. For the second fork system call, these two processes will create child process as shown in the diagram P and C2, C1 and C3. For the third fork system call, these four processes will create their child processes P, C4, C2, C5, C1, C6, C3, C7. Now, the question is how many times printf statement executed. In the previous question, the problem was to find out the total number of child processes created. So by observing this diagram, so how many child processes are created? 7. That is 2 to the power of 3 minus 1. But now, how many times the printf statement is executed? So the printf statement occurs after 3 fork system call. So that means you can see that number of processes at this level, it is totally it is 8. So the answer is 2 to the power of 3, that is 8 times the hello will be printed on the display. So the answer is 2 to the power of 3, that is 8 times the printf statement will be executed for this C program. Now I will verify whether you have watched part 1 and part 2 of fork system call. What is the header file to be included in C program whenever you want to use this fork system call? And the next question is, what is the function to be used before printf statement to avoid the problem of copying the output buffer by the child process from the parent process? You can give the answer in the comment section, because had you watched the part 1 and part 2 of fork system call video, you can easily answer for these two questions. So answer is 8 for this question. Next, the difference between fork inside a loop and fork used contiguously. So the printf statement is executed 2 to the power of n for n calls contiguously. That is what we have just now discussed in the previous problem. And the printf statement will be executed 2 to the power of 5 for each loop iteration for fork system calls within a loop. This concept we have discussed in part 2 lecture session or video on the fork system call. In both these two cases, the total number of child processes created is 2 to the power of n minus 1. So that is same for in both these two cases. But when you want to find the number of times the printf statement is executed, that is 2 to the power of n for n calls of fork system call contiguously or continuously. But the printf statement is executed 2 to the power of pi for each loop iteration for 4 calls within a loop. So we have to read the question very carefully and answer accordingly.